Good day, friends. This is my second video on retired General Anil Chauhan's talk that he gave on August 25th at the Vivekananda International Foundation. Now, Anil Chauhan was the Chief of Defense Staff, India's senior most military officer when Operation Sindoor happened. In today's video, I'll cover two issues. The first is Anil Chauhan's idea of victory over Pakistan. What he believes were the factors that led to India being victorious over Pakistan in the 4-day conflict. And the second issue I'll touch upon is the nuclear one that came up during Operation Sindoor. So let me talk about the first one. Now, perhaps one of the most important statements that Anil Chauhan made in his talk was he said that for this operation, the Indian military did not ask the government for additional resources to make up their deficiencies. Why? Because he said the Indian military had enough to carry out operations for a number of days. The key word is number of days. In other words, even before this operation started, Anil Chauhan was absolutely clear that the mission that the government had given them to accomplish could be done in under a week's time. And what was the mission? The mission was to teach Pakistan a lesson so that Pakistan ends cross-border terrorism. And in this mission, there was a political restriction also, which was that the Indian military will hit only non-military targets inside Pakistan. No military targets would be hit. So hit only the terrorist and the terror infrastructure, nothing more than that. Why? Because the government wanted the operation to remain well below the threshold of war. And we have seen this is a pattern since this government has come to power in all the operations that it has done against Pakistan. They've been in the realm of clash, crisis, and conflict, well below the threshold of war, a hot war. Now, when you look at the mission, you look at the time frame, it becomes very clear that whole thing is laughable, it's a joke. It simply cannot be done. You see, the point is that what the government was trying to achieve through Operation Sindoor was an entirely different objective. And that is what I'll talk towards the end of my talk. I'll talk about that. So let me continue with what Anil Chauhan said, that this 4-day conflict, it was in 3 phases. In phase 1, he said, which was the first night, the night of 6th, 7th May, that is when the Indian side it hit 9 targets inside Pakistan, and this is what we know, the air war happened on the first night. Then he said the second phase was when for the next 2 days, 8th and 9th of May, both the sides they only used drones. In other words, the Indian Air Force was not in action at all. And then he said the phase 3 or the final phase was what happened on the night of 9th and 10th May. This is when he said the Indian Air Force did 4 waves of air attacks on military targets inside Pakistan. So let's understand this. The first night, Indian Air Force hits non-military targets. Next 2 days, Indian Air Force is not in action. It does not do any operation. Why? Because now it has to orient itself from hitting non-military to military targets. So a lot of consultation, lot of talks have to go on first of all at various levels of the government. At the political leadership, bureaucratic leadership, the military leadership, and then the Indian Air Force also has to decide on the weapon packages now that have to be used for the night of 9th, 10th May to hit the military targets. So this is how the situation, the 4-day, how things panned out in the 4 days. Now, in all this, he says that we were victorious over Pakistan. Let us now consider the factors that he lists which led to India's victory over Pakistan. The top factor is space. According to Anil Chauhan, the Indian side had better space capabilities than the Pakistan side. So therefore, we had better battlefield transparency, situation awareness, navigation for our missiles and our drones. Then he said the Indian side, the Indian military had full freedom, a free hand given to it by the political leadership. Then he says that India decided when the ceasefire will happen. The timing was decided by India. So this is the indication of India's victory. And then he says that in the war that we fought, a modern war, the notion of victory itself has changed. Let me now talk about all these factors that he has listed in brief, one by one. As far as political leadership giving a free hand to the Indian military, I have discussed in my first video, so I won't dwell on that any further. Let me talk about what he says the notion of victory has changed. According to him, now victory is not what used to be in the traditional sense, that if you have war, then you win the war if you gain enemy's territory, you do attrition on its military wherewithal, or you have the prisoner of wars, the enemy's prisoner of wars. This used to be the traditional way of victory. He says that this is no longer correct now. Now he says that the notion of victory is how sophisticated our operations were, which means the precision, the timing, the speed, and the tempo of operation. They constitute notion of victory. Now, what he is talking about and getting confused is, he is actually talking about the kill chain. Kill chain as to how, with your better operation, you are able to close the kill chain faster than the enemy. What he needs to know is that kill chain or the sophistication of your operation is a process towards victory. As far as the indicator of victories are concerned, they remain the same. They have not changed at all. In fact, his confusion about this war becomes very clear when later in the talk he says that the war now has transited from physical to synthetic to cognitive domains. So the notion of victory has to be defined separately. In other words, there is no clarity what is the notion of victory. Why? Because there is a transition that has happened from physical to synthetic. Synthetic, he is referring to the virtual domains of war, which we know are electromagnetic spectrum or electronic warfare and cyber. And then he talks about transition to the cognitive domain. Now here the Indian military believes that information war is what cognitive domain is, but actually cognitive domain, when we talk of cognitive, we are talking about a different concept of war where information war is one of the elements. But this is a different subject, I won't go there. The point that I want to make is that Anil Chauhan should know that there is a no transition. Transition has not happened. What has happened is that the physical and the synthetic domains or the virtual domains, they have got integrated. So today, all the domains of war, which is land, air, sea, space, cyber, electromagnetic spectrum, or electronic warfare, they all have become one whole. They are integrated today. And I have explained in my earlier videos that when you have all these domains integrated, please remember that there is a continuum of your cyber capabilities, electromagnetic spectrum, and space. If you do not have competitive capability in this continuum of war as compared to your enemy, you lose the war. It's simple as that. Next, Anil Chauhan talks about, earlier in his talk, he says that look, what we did against Pakistan was multi-domain operation, and then towards the end he says that there are new frontiers of war that we need to build upon. And the new frontier he lists as cyberspace quantum, which earlier he had said that we are doing a multi-domain warfare. So there is no clarity at all. And then as far as cyber is concerned, he says that in India, what's happening is in the Indian military, that all the three services, They are in silos. They don't want to discuss their cyber capabilities with the other two services. So I had to bring everybody together to make a cyber war or a cyber campaign. Now, the point here is what he's referring to is defensive capabilities of the services. And please remember, when we are talking about cyber campaign or cyber war, we are talking about a war which will happen at the speed of light. And because it is happening at the speed of light, the defensive capabilities become meaningless. What you need is offensive capabilities. It's all about attack, attack, attack. So the point I'm making is that he has no idea at all, I'm sorry to say, about what he says, the notion of victory. Now let me move on to what he says the ceasefire. That we decided the ceasefire when that will happen, and that is the indicator of victory over Pakistan. According to him, the ceasefire was decided between the two DGMOs, Director General Military Operation of Pakistan as well as India. And he said on the 10th of May, morning at 9:30, the Pakistani DGMO got in touch with Indian DGMO and he wanted ceasefire. Indian DGMO told him that, look, we'll do the ceasefire at 3 o'clock in the evening. Eventually, we did the ceasefire at 5 o'clock in the evening. And then he starts wondering in his talk as to when there was no role for anybody else at all in the ceasefire, how did this information get leaked to the Americans? Because we know that President Trump on 10th May itself, early in the morning, he put out on the social media that there'll be a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Well, hours before the Indians said that there'll be a ceasefire. So now Anil Chauhan is wondering in his talk as to how it got leaked out. You see, either he thinks that the people of India are stupid, or he thinks he's too clever, or he's actually out of the loop, which I fail to believe. I mean, everybody knows that Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, first of all, he asked for a ceasefire from Pakistan within 30 minutes of India starting the operations. And he has said this on the floor of the parliament itself. So where is the doubt? Then we also know that on the early morning of May 7th, immediately after the air war happened, the first night, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval got in touch with his American counterpart Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio, we know in America, he doubles up both as the NSA as well as the Secretary of State. And Doval explained to Rubio India's targets, which targets India hit, and how hitting those targets was a non-escalatory action. The point is, what was the need for India's NSA to go and tell all these things to the Americans? Obviously, you wanted help from them. You wanted de-escalation because, as Anil Chauhan clearly said, that the Indian military was only prepared for a couple of days. So there was a problem. Not only that, starting May 8th, there was constant interaction going on between Rubio and External Affairs Minister Jay Shankar. And surely Rubio was talking on the other side also, the Pakistani leadership seeking an immediate de-escalation from both the sides. And that is how President Trump got to know, and that is how he put it before even the Indians announced. So where is the doubt in that? Now, his next thing that he said is that our space capabilities were better, and Anil Chauhan explains that by saying that, look, India's Defense Space Agency, it worked overtime around the clock, and it was working very close with ISRO. And then we got a lot of commercial satellite images also. And according to him, because of all these factors, the revisit time of the images, it was reduced for India from 24 hours to 8 hours. In other words, the images or the space capabilities that India was getting, they were 8 hours behind the actual event happening. And this, he explains, led to battlefield transparency, situation awareness, navigation better than the Pakistani side, because he said, as far as Pakistan is concerned, their commercial satellites that they were getting, they were perhaps not better than us. Now, he obviously believes that people have a very short memory. Please recall, immediately after Operation Sindoor, the then Deputy Chief of Army, Lieutenant General Rahul Singh, he was addressing the FICCI people, and there he said that Pakistan had access to real-time intelligence. And he gave the example also that when the DGMO talks were going on, the Pakistani side told the Indian side that we know that your vectors are primed and ready to fire, so please pull them back. Then at another forum, Rahul Singh, when he was speaking about Operation Sindoor, he said that in that operation, India was faced with one border, two adversaries, actually three adversaries. He said that it was Pakistan was the front and China and Turkey provided critical support. So he has considered all that. And what was that critical support? The most important support provided by China was China's space capability. Real-time military resolutions to Pakistan. A very big thing. And why I say very big thing is because the space capability is what is called the Beidou 3 satellite constellation of China. It is far superior to that of the Americans, the GPS. GPS is old. And it is because of this reason, President Trump, in his first term in office, please recall in 2019, he raised a new space force, which is basically cater for the enhanced space capability of China. And today the US military has 5 services, which is the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, and Space Force. So Pakistan is the first foreign country to get military, to access to military resolution, to get militarily integrated with the Chinese Beidou satellite system. And that is what helps Pakistan in their defense logistics, situation awareness, battlefield transparency, and navigation and guidance of their drones and their missiles. Let me explain this a little more. Now, when we talk about the space capabilities of China, we are talking about a teaming of two different type of satellites. One is what is called the Beidou 3 satellite constellation, which is nearly 50 satellites. And because it is Beidou 3, that means it works in 3 orbits. It is there in the geosynchronous orbit, it is there in the middle Earth orbit. And the third orbit, which the GPS doesn't have, is what is called the inclined geosynchronous orbit. So whereas the geosynchronous orbit, that provides the global ISR and the navigation, the inclined geostrategic in the satellites here in this orbit, they provide the regional anchor. Now this is a very big thing. And they team up with another set of satellites which is called the Yagon augmentation satellites. They are in the low Earth orbit. When we talk of low Earth orbit, we are talking about altitudes from 600 kilometers to 1200 kilometers. I'll give you 2 examples of the Yagon satellite, different satellites. One is the SAR, which is synthetic aperture radar with the capability of persistent stare. That means these are the eyes in the skies which can look through bad weather, look through clouds, and they are there at an altitude of 1100 to 1200 kilometers. And the second is what is called ELINT satellite. Electronic intelligence, they operate at an altitude of 600 to 800 kilometers and they do the electronic mapping. Please remember and recall that on May 8th, when the Pakistan Air Force gave a briefing to the international media, that was done by AVM Aurangzeb Ahmed. He had there a digital map where he showed the electronic identification got through the ELINT satellite of all the Indian aircraft and the assets which were there in the battlefield. So when you look at this sort of capability, battlefield capability of space capability, to which to which Pakistan has access. If I may just digress to make another point, I said Pakistan is the first country to get access. Iran is perhaps the second. Because Iran on the 1st January 2026, when it joined the Belt and Road Initiative of China, it also then shifted from GPS to the Beidou 3 constellation of China, space capabilities, the military capabilities, resolutions. Which is why there are reports in the American press and the American leaders, the military leaders, they are saying that the accuracy of the Iranian missiles for long range drones for their missiles is far better than what it was in the 12-day war that happened in 2025. Now, coming back to what I was talking, an additional thing that has happened is that the war now will be non-linear. In other words, it's all about depth targeting, not the contact line. Now, when you look at depth targeting, a non-linear war, and you look at this humongous space capabilities, what are we talking about? We are now talking about the Indian Army having great difficulty in hiding their big assets, weapons, BrahMos, S-400, even their battalions, their higher headquarters. It will be very difficult because the Pakistanis will know where exactly what is. So the requirement will be of troops dispersal. There will be a need for deployment and redeployment constantly. All these concepts of concentration for main effort, they will no longer be relevant. So this is about space capabilities. So the point I'm making is all this notion that of victory that he has spoken about, Anil Chauhan, it does not make sense at all. Now let me touch upon the nuclear aspect. Very important. Please remember that after Operation Sindoor, when the briefing was given by Air Marshal A.K. Bharti, he said very clearly that we did not target the nuclear facilities of Pakistan, which everybody knows are somewhere in the Kirana Hills. Kirana Hills is about 10 kilometers north of Sargodha, and underground facilities are there. I mean, this is hardly a secret. Now, Anil Chauhan, his comment on this was entirely different from what Bharti had said. He said that look, we had used a lot of loitering munition for finding out the radars in the Sargodha area. So a loitering munition, he said, hours one, they had about 2 hours of endurance. When they failed perhaps to locate the radars, their actual targets, they went astray and they could have gone anywhere and perhaps hit somewhere on the Kirana Hills as well. And then Chauhan himself said, and he drew attention to the media reports of Pakistan where there were images of the smoke coming out from that area, the area of Kirana Hills. And this is the reason why President Trump repeatedly said that I averted a nuclear war between India and Pakistan, because this is what Field Marshal Asim Munir would have told President Trump, especially when he met up with him for dinner in the White House in June 2025. So the point I'm making is that the situation has become very delicate and critical with the new normal that has been created. Now here, what Anil Chauhan said was that, look, we have a no first use policy. India has that policy, and therefore we have much room for conventional operations. Pakistan does not have a no first use policy. It has a full spectrum deterrence. And why it has that is because when India announced its cold start strategy which in any case was a non-starter. Immediately, the reaction came from the Pakistan side, and they said that now we will have tactical nuclear weapons. And along with the tactical nuclear weapons, they announced their new strategy, which is full spectrum deterrence. That means they have deterrence at all the level, including tactical. It's another matter that in the case of Pakistan, the tactical nuclear weapons also would be treated as strategic weapons and held at the strategic level. They will not be given to the field commanders. But the point that I'm trying to make is, and which is very important, that Pakistan, when you look at its geography, which is absolutely elongated, with so many assets close to the border with India. So, first of all, there is every reason after the structural reorganizations that the Pakistan military has done after Operation Sindoor, that they would perhaps start another operation, God forbid, if they do. They have all the reasons. I won't go in those details. And the other thing that I want to tell you is that the threshold of nuclear exchange, it has become sufficiently lower. And this is the reason that instead of the National Command Authority, which was headed by the Prime Minister of Pakistan, which has been sidelined, a new structure has been created, which is called the National Strategic Command, whose commander has been appointed, and he reports directly to Field Marshal Asim Munir. In other words, Asim Munir has controls the conventional war and he controls the nuclear capabilities as well. So the situation has become very critical, and perhaps there is a need now for the Indian side to start the talks with Pakistan on the nuclear issue, because nobody wants a nuclear war in the region. Now I'll come to what I was saying, why India actually started, in my assessment, this Operation Sindoor. You see, as far as the Modi government is concerned, it always looks for political gains through conflict. Conflict which stays below the war threshold level. And the key mastermind of this, undoubtedly, is the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. Why I say that is because he himself gave out what became the Doval Doctrine, the concept of defensive offense, where he said that we need to strike the terror and infrastructure at source itself, which is precisely what India has tried to do in all the engagements with Pakistan, rather than neutralize the terrorist on the Indian soil, on Indian soil. This is straight, simple his doctrine, his thinking, which has been accepted by the government. And the executor of this is the Chief of Defense Staff. And this is the reason that before becoming the Chief of Defense Staff, all the officers, if you have seen, the second and now the third one, Chief of Defense Staff, they all have had a stint under the NSA. They have been military advisors to NSA. They have been head of the National Security Council Secretariat, which is headed by the NSA. The whole idea obviously is that they must clearly understand what the government wants them to do, and then they become the medium between what the political leadership wants and how the political gains can be had. I'm not talking of national gains. The political gains can be had through conflict. And please recall that Prime Minister Modi himself, from the rampart of the Red Fort, on the 15th of August 2019, before the first CDS was, was made, which is General Bipin Rawat, late Bipin Rawat, he said that the formation of the CDS post, after this, all the three services will get effective leadership at the top. So as far as the CDS is concerned, he commands the three services. He is the senior most military commander. That's his one job, and we saw that he did this in this conflict. And his second job is what he calls the cognitive warfare, which is information warfare, which is disinformation You mislead by disinformation. The enemy. Unfortunately, it's happening here within the country. And why suddenly everybody now in the government is talking about Operation Sindoor 1 year, 3 months after it happened? I mean, we find the Discovery Channel that has come up with a documentary on Operation Sindoor. Then recently, the defense minister was talking of Operation Sindoor, and now Anil Chauhan is talking of Operation Sindoor. It's very clear that the geopolitical rise of Pakistan, which started with the consequences or the result of Operation Sindoor as the world saw it, as America saw it. The start point was that. That has been a very upward trajectory, phenomenal rise geopolitically. And that obviously is a source of envy for the Indian leadership. So there are a lot of followers today of the government who have become doubters. They have to be brought on track. And hence all this talk that is going on and the talk given by Anil Chauhan. Thank you so much.